there was early recovery, which is the first year. I always call, in my mind, when I've kind of spoken to people in recovery, it's like you're still fighting the old self. Yeah, the mindsets and the behaviours. It's as much a battle of self, I think, in that first year. That's my understanding. And then there's kind of the middle period, which is years 1 to 4, which she called the sustained phase of recovery. I call it the messy middle. Yeah, it's where you're dealing with all of the crap that you've inherited, all of the trauma, and taking responsibility for the mess that you've made in amongst all of that as well. And you're building some of the positives. You're replacing the old identities and labels and creating some new ones. And then she said there's a third phase of recovery, which is called the stable phase, and that's kind of years 5 plus. And what we see during that time, the evidence is what she was talking about, was that the chances of relapse reduces significantly. So it goes from in the first year, in that still very chaotic phase, of around 45 to kind of 65%, okay? But by the time you get to 5 years plus, it reduces to 15%, 1-5, which is the equivalent of anyone in the room who's never been in addiction, of you starting an addiction phase in your own life. So we can see that recovery is regenerative. It doesn't stay the same. It builds and it gets stronger. And actually research shows, and I love this one, another little fact for you before we get to the panel, is that people in recovery 5 years plus report higher levels of quality of life and well-being as compared to your neighbours on your street. Why? Because you guys live differently, and we've heard that this morning. I just thought the panel this morning on the culture of recovery, because you guys live it and breathe it, regardless of whether you work in Recovery Connections or you're part of the community here, you live it. And you can take that back into your families and your own workplaces and your own neighbourhoods, and you will help raise the quality of life and well-being, because you're showing people there's a different way to live, to relate to yourself, to relate to others, and a different way of showing up in the world. So we're going to hear some of that through this panel. That was a very long introduction, I apologise. So guys, just before we get into what recovery looked like for you in that kind of first year of your recovery, just very briefly, how did you get into recovery? Just so that people have got a bit of a context for your transition point into recovery. Yeah.
So for me, I started drinking and using drugs when I was 14. But never, I thought it was normal. I thought I was normal.
Yeah.
I thought I didn't have a problem. And it took me till the grand old age of 42 before I actually realised and really hit rock bottom. And I know it's cliche that people say that you don't get help until you hit rock bottom, but I did. Lost my family, my job, my home, everything. So I had no choice if that was the only other option left.
And what was your pathway into recovery?
So I went to the local drug and alcohol service. So although I'm from up here, I live down in Hampshire because I moved down there for work. So I went to the local drug and alcohol service. Well, actually, I started Googling rehabs that don't cost a lot of money because I had no money. And it came up with the inclusion, which is the local drug and alcohol service. So that's how I started my recovery.
Fantastic, thank you. Peter, how did you get into recovery? The transition point in.
Yeah, so the transition point for me was I met a girl I used to take drugs with, and she worked for Recovery Connections, and like rehab and recovery, I'd never heard of it. You know, I think I must have watched a few programmes with rehab in it and that, I must have, but it was never a thing that came to my mind. And I was homeless at the time. I'd hit a rock bottom like I'd never hit before. And when I seen this girl, and I knew I smoked drugs, like I'd been taking drugs with this girl, so I knew what she was like. And I think she was about 4 years when I met her, and she definitely didn't look like she was taking drugs. I was like, it's a bit cringy, right? But she looked like an angel. Like there was something there, and she was like, look at, and she never spoke to me like that. And she was like, I know a way out. And I was like, it was all alien language. And I was like, a way out what? And she was like, a way out the mess you're in. And I was like, wow. You know, and she told me that she worked for Recovery Connections and that she could get me in. And there was a few hoops I had to jump through. And at that point, I was willing to do whatever it took. So, yeah.
Fantastic.
Happy days.
Thanks, Peter.
For me, is this on? Is this working? Yeah, for me, I got into recovery. I was fortunate enough to go to a treatment centre. I went to the Priory in Altrincham. And that was through like AXA Health. I had insurance. Yeah, that's where I first found recovery. First found the meaning of recovery. Didn't know what it was. Didn't know it was a thing. I only knew addiction. But yeah, that's how I got into recovery, through the treatment centre.
Yeah, brilliant, thanks.
Hiya.
Hi.
So for me, I started using recreationally. I used to compare myself quite a lot because I had a good job, I had a lot of stability, I had family that supported me. But I couldn't live with all these different masks I was wearing, and I wasn't in line with my own values of being honest. So I connected with an old friend and went back to a meeting, which massively gave me a lot of support, and connected with the people who I needed to be around.
Brilliant, thank you. I think that was useful just for people to hear that big turning point. So if you could just cast your minds back to your first year, okay? And I'd like you just to paint a bit of a picture for everyone listening. What did that look like? So what was going on internally, kind of mentally, emotionally? What were your relationships like in that first year of trying to recover? What about your sense of belonging in your family, job, your community? So whatever comes up for you, but just try and think holistically around what was going on in that very first 12 months.
So for me, obviously I left the Priory. I did 6 weeks in there. I got diagnosed with bipolar in there as well, so it wasn't just the addiction. For the first 3 weeks, I didn't leave the house because now I've understood recovery. I don't just know addiction. I can't unlearn it. And to me, it was like the danger's out of this house, and it's out of these rooms, and it's with the people who I've used with. So for the first 3 weeks, I didn't leave the house. Again, I was fortunate to work with a therapist who, on a one-on-one basis, who was asking me how you're doing. I'm great, living life, flipping the camera and be like, the blinds are closed, like I'm not leaving the house. And he was like, what we need to do is start getting you like back in, into the world. Encouraged me to start going for walks like with my wife and with my kids, like where I wouldn't use, with them, or walking early in the morning. And I come out of the rehab in the middle of August, like in 2024, and I started university in September. Wow. So I was doing like a master's in psychology, because one of the therapists in the rehab was like, you should look to become a therapist. Which was unreal. And then truthfully for me, what happened was I met Peter, because I think it was through God as well, truthfully. The first person I spoke to on my psychology course, it was a girl called Abby, and she was saying, do you know that there's support on campus for students going through recovery? And that's how I met Peter, who got me through the first semester at least, of university. Wow. And I was focused on something else. I had a new life. I was back in university. I was front of the class, as opposed to being hooded up, sat in the back of the class. I wanted it, you know what I mean? Like, but yeah, first year recovery was hard, and I think what really helped me was unity. Like I was saying, like I met Peter, but he introduced me to Recovery Connections. He introduced me to like NA, like a mutual aid group, and it was the unity and seeing people who like got years of recovery behind them, and that they can do it. So if they could do it, then I can. Yeah. Thank you. Are we going right?
Whichever way you want to go.
I'll have to go you then.
Yeah. First year. Yeah. So first year was tough. It was tough. It was a contradiction. That's what it was. It was like I'm gonna live a dream, and then on the next breath I'm gonna die, and I don't want to use at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and at 3 o'clock I'm dying to use, and it was just all it was up, and I learned that, and I got told that it was peaks and troughs in the early days. So you're going to go dead high, but the higher you go, Peter, the lower you're going to come down. Yeah. And there was just loads of self-pity, loads of euphoria. But then getting back in touch with my family, starting to learn about recovery, starting to learn about taking some responsibility, being accountable. I'd never owned anything. I'd never owned up to anything. I'd always lied or blamed or, and I was in rehab at Recovery Connections, and they were teaching me, like, own your stuff, take some responsibility. You've got nothing to hide anymore. You're here, you're in rehab, mate. Where else can you, this was it. And that's what I started to do. And I would write letters to my sister, and she would write back, because she changed her number and everything. She wouldn't talk to me. And I would get in touch with my dad and my partner, and my little girl would come and visit me, and slowly but slowly we were starting to heal. And then I was allowed out on a Saturday, and my partner would come and pick me up, and we'd go to Whitby as a family, and we'd go out on the boat and get ice cream, and I was clean, and I'd never done, like, I was using from 11 to 36 year old. I've never not used, you know, so this was all absolutely brand new to me. And then I'd have to learn tools, like, you know, some days it was on me and I wanted to use, you know, even like 6-7 months in, I'd wanted to use, and my people would say, because connection was important and unity, and they'd say to me, right, get your head down on the pillow, just go to sleep. Tomorrow you'll wake up feeling different, and they were right. And it's them sort of things I still use today. I share that stuff today with people who are in early recovery, and you know. And then I'd done the ambassadors course, and I started to learn. Like my first year, I was on the ambassadors. I went to college my first year, and I was taking all this stuff that I was learning here, and I was going out and practicing it, and I was making massive mistakes on that ambassador course. And Recovery Connection showed me that it was a safe place to make mistakes. There was 3 things I can do. I'm not going to share them here, but there was a few.
Come on, Peter, come on.
There was a few things I couldn't do. What I gained in my little brain, I thought, right, there's these things you can't do here. But other than that, Pete, you can more or less get away with anything here. Do you know? So, and then I went for it, and I would go down and I'd be an ambassador with a badge on, and I was dead proud. But then I'd be talking about so-and-so's just got his door kicked in round the corner to all the vulnerable people who were still in rehab. And then I'd get shouted at. People would come, well, not shouted at, but I'd get challenged. They'd come in and say, right, why do you think that's not right? And I was like, well, he knows him. They're the best pals out there, them too. And I would try and justify what I was doing. And then he'd say, well, I think you best share that in the ambassadors course next week and see what you come up with. And then I was learning. That's how I would learn. I would make mistakes. I would get honest, and I would learn. And it was so on and so on. And so eventually, I've got a job at Recovery Connections. And I haven't made any severe mistake. You know, I'm still here anyway, so that's a good sign. That's a good sign. But yeah, first year was hard.
For me, it was the first year was lonely. Like I said, I lost touch with my family. And the only way that I could stay sober is to cut myself off from, like we were saying earlier, what I thought were my circle of friends. They weren't friends, they were people that I used to drink or use with, but it was lonely. And until Recovery Connections came to Hampshire, we didn't have anything like this. You know, we've got the drug and alcohol service, we've got fellowships, but there was no Recovery Connection. So it was tough, really tough. But yeah.
Great. We'll just pass to.
I think putting the work in. You know, you've got to have purpose as well, having structure, getting up in the morning thinking, do you know what, I've got to really push myself. And, you know, it might be a bad day, but it's not a bad life. And getting to be your authentic self, you know, when I started Recovery Connections, you can be the real you. You don't have to wear them masks, and you know that you've got people that are with you, walking alongside you each day, community, staff, everyone, because we're one. So I think that's a beautiful thing to be a part of, and that keeps pushing you to thrive.
Yeah, lovely. And next one, just around, so you're all sat here today, kind of, you know, years down the line, X number of years, in your empowered, authentic selves, but actually that turning point where, you know, Peter, you were saying, from age 11, 20 plus years using drugs and addiction, some people I've spoken to describe it as like awakening for the first time. You know, doing things, everyday ordinary things, spending time with children, so on and so forth, or emotions coming up that you've never felt before. So it's like you're experiencing the world anew. How did that first year feel with all of that going on and this new awakening, if you like, to, life?
For me, I think the only way I can describe it is like when I was growing up, I felt like I had a big dark cloud above me constantly. And I think it's taken that off and having a bit of light, if that makes sense.
Yes.
It makes sense in my head anyway. Yeah, because you see things a lot differently. You notice the little things in life, like as random it is, like a bird, you know, looking up, you know, not having my head down and looking up and seeing little things. Like, I remember once in my old job, like seeing a little beautiful flower growing out of the crack of a pavement, you know, in a really like dark alley, and just looking at the beautiful things in life and appreciating them, the little things.
Nice.
Thank you. I think for me it's like So my dissertation for my master's, it's like transition from addict self to true self, and I think that's what you're saying. And it's like, for me, it was unbelievable, truthfully, because it's like that's me coming back out. So like, even an example I can give is like, I'm only doing a 1-year course in university, and I've done a 3-year undergrad. But in this 3-year undergrad, I didn't join no society, I didn't join no sports team, no nothing. Even though like I'm good at sports. Whereas like this year, when I went back to uni and I'm my true self, and I've left the addict self behind, I'm in chess society, beating Col wherever he is at chess. But I joined the sports team, I joined the cricket team, I've joined the football team, and I even won a grant like in a competition with TU Global to hopefully go India in the next couple of months to like work with people over there who were like suffering with bipolar and addiction.
Wow.
And I just thought to myself, like, what was I doing for them 3 years in undergrad? Do you know what I mean? I was consoled, like I was just fully obsessed in addiction, and I didn't know. So yeah, it's like someone just like lifted the lid, and like I've come to life, truthfully.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's like I've been asleep for like 25 years, you know, in some slumber, and I've just woke up and I've joined the party 25 years too late. Do you know, like all you have been having a party and I've just turned up to it. Do you know, that's how it felt, and I felt like I had some time to make up. That's how what I felt. But what I also learned was that I was terrified. I was really scared of everything, and what I learned was that I found reality really difficult to live in. But by using a substance in me, I found it a little bit more bearable to deal with on a daily basis. But there was a point, a threshold came where that stopped working too, do you know, and reality became really hard, but drug taking became even harder, and I was in a mess, do you know, and that's when the wheels fell off. I was in an absolute mess. And then when I go to rehab and I get clean and I get off the drugs and I start doing the work, I start to realise that I'm scared, and I didn't believe I was scared. I thought, like, you know, I came from a place where I admired drug dealers and I admired gangsterism and stuff like that. So I thought, like, being scared was not fighting and stuff like that. And what they told me in rehab was like, because I said to him, I'm not scared of anything. He said, you're scared. I'm saying, I'm not scared of anything, mate. He went, well, if you're not scared of anything, I want you to go in that meeting tonight and share in front of them 20 people. I was like, oh, I can't do that. He was like, why not? I was like, oh, God, I'm scared. You know? Like, he was like, well, what are you scared of? I said, well, I'm scared of what they're going to think of me. I'm scared of looking stupid. I'm scared of feeling embarrassed. And it just carried on, and all my insecurities came. And I started to learn then, right, I'm getting this.
Yes.
So then, what do I do? So when we face our fear, we challenge ourselves. He used to say, there was always a term, I don't know why he mentioned this, but he always used to mention the saber-toothed tiger. I don't know what that was about, but he said, the saber-toothed tiger's not going to jump out and get you. You're going to be all right. It's just fear, false evidence appearing real, stuff like that. So through that, I've worked, like, my time in recovery now. Like, I went and done an access course at college, terrified with all that same fear, but I just turned up every day and done it, passed, went to uni, done that, got the job, done that, and I was just like hitting milestones, overcoming my fear, and you know, and that was like, and as well, my first year, not only fear, it was dealing with relationships, you know, healthily, and oh, that was tough, you know, me and my partner, like, that was really hard because she put up with a lot, you know, and now I had to, like, try and prove to her, and again, they would say to me, trust is not given, trust is earned. So it's all right, talk, it's about action. You've got to show that you've changed, and that's only with action and patience. There was loads of stuff to learn, you know, and it still is, thank God. There's still loads to, you know, I know a tiny bit. So, yeah.
Powerful, thank you.
For me, the first year was very emotional, and still is now. I'm 3.5 years now, and Jen will tell you, I think I cried 3 times in my supervision last week. And I think it's learning to deal with my emotions, and I still find that hard now. So, yeah. So it was emotional.
Thank you. I think the closing question to end the panel on is just, if there's people in the room who are in that first year, looking back, what do you think are some of the key things that helped you build your recovery, that strengthened it and sustained it? Kind of what factors would you say from that first year really accelerated or strengthened your recovery the most? So what advice would you give to someone who's in that first year?
Surround yourself with good people, stick with the winners, and, you know, I think this may have stopped working, but get involved with everything that Recovery Connections has to offer, because I think that's where my recovery really started, when I started to volunteer at the Drug and Alcohol Service. And I think the opportunities that Recovery Connections have is just phenomenal. But yes, I would say surround yourself with good people and get involved with as much as you can.
Powerful. Thanks.
Yeah, so what I'd say to someone who's just coming around as, you know, I believe this is why lived experience is so important, because it's really simple, but we're complicated, and so I seem complicated. But all I have to do is follow someone who's 6 months ahead of me, who looks really happy, who seems to have a nice life, who seems to have healthy relationships, and are in recovery. I just think, right, I'm going to follow what these do. Whatever these do, I'm going to do. And that's what I've done, and it's worked. It's worked a treat. What a touch! So that's what I'd say. You know, just don't believe your thinking, and turn up. Like, no matter what. Like, that's what I love about Recovery Connections. We can turn up as ourselves. You know, because some days we're not firing on all cylinders. Some days, you know, I'm not fully performing, and it's all right, and that's all right. You know, as long as we turn up, don't shy away. Because what I find is this thing that we have, this illness, this disease, addiction, whatever you want to call it, it loves isolation. It loves to get me on my own and then talk to me in my own voice and tell me negative things about myself that wants me further isolating away from connect. Because connection is the protection. That's what we need here, you know. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
Yeah, I just think, truthfully, like, it's what Peter's saying there, just even about following people, because I followed him. I'm here, I'm talking on a stage, do you know what I mean? And I'm doing good, and you know what I'd say to someone in recovery, so I speak to a lot of new people in recovery, like, through my work, is be honest and be authentic and be your true self, because everybody's good at something, where they go from writing, like, even like we had Andy with the poetry, like, everybody's good at something, and own it, and get vulnerable. But get vulnerable in the right places, around the right people. Like, it's no good just sitting with your feelings, like, outside on a park bench, because then the disease of addiction is just going to get us to use, and it's a powerlessness of it. But you can get vulnerable, like, through people who've got lived experience, coaches, therapists, and in an organisation like Recovery Connections, you can get vulnerable in them spaces where you're safe, in the rehabs, in the prehabs, and you've got people who can look after you. So yeah, the main message would be to be honest, because that's what helps, do you know, truly. Yeah.
Everything what these have said, but also be patient, be kind to yourself, love, be compassionate with others, but also don't compare yourself to others as well, because everyone's recovery and journey is different, and you know, we're all unique. And be real.
Thank you so much, guys. That's not what. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge and also your strength to overcome, because the things that you were talking about are not easy, regardless of whether you're in addiction or not, and to keep doing that. And you know, the truth is that for those 5 years plus, what they'll all say is life now is way better than I ever imagined. So yes, that first year is hell, so tough, and the obstacles, the mountains that you've got to overcome, no person should have to go through such things, but it's possible. And you guys are living testaments to that. And 5 years plus is the dream of kind of life is way beyond a life I ever imagined. I'm doing things I never thought was possible. Levels of kind of meaning and fulfillment are off the charts. And you have relationships of solidarity, the people who know you so well that even though you're not afraid to ask for help anymore, like most people, you know, don't like to say, I'm struggling, I need help. You guys are liberated. Hey, I'm struggling today, can somebody help me? That's freedom, that's liberation. You guys live that every day. And so as a result of you guys putting in that hard work in the first year, it leads on to more and more growth and fulfillment and freedom. So thank you for showing us the way. Thanks so much.